Okay, a blessed day to my grade 7 students at Pampanga High School, Blue 1, Cream 1, and Pink 6. So we are going to discuss our lesson 5, but before that, let's move on to our lesson objectives. Number 1, recognize the different types of poetry, lyric, dramatic, and narrative. Number 2, we're also going to discuss or differentiate the types of poetry with your point of view, like delivery and purpose. And last but not least, we're going to identify the author's purpose in writing. Okay, lesson 5, the types of poetry. So there we have actually three types of poetry. We have lyric, dramatic, and narrative. But before we go or deep dive with the details of each type, let's somehow activate your prior knowledge, okay? So from the word itself, lyric poetry, ang madalas pumapasok sa isip natin ano? It's what? Something related to music, something related to songs. It's because madalas sasabihin natin anong lyrics ng kanta na yan, and so on and so forth. And number 2, we talk about dramatic poetry. Ang naiisip natin or the words that we can associate to dramatic is the word drama. When there is drama, perhaps may emotion, something that is being performed by a specific actor or an actress, right, for dramatic. And last but not the least, of course, narrative poetry. From the word itself, narrate. Saan ba natin madalas nakikita ang or na-encounter ang word na narrate? Isn't it when there are stories that are being uh, foretold or sa atin, right? So with that, let's move on with our discussion. Number 1 is lyric poetry. Class, here's what you need to remember when we talk about lyric poetry. All right. Number 1, it refers to a short poem. Okay, it's short. Number 2, it expresses what? The emotions and feelings of the speaker and its thoughts. Alright? So it is a short poem that expresses the speaker's deep personal feelings and emotions and thoughts. Number 2, at the same time, tulad nga ng sinabi ko kanina, when we talk about lyric, usually this type of poetry are intended to be sung and usually accompanied by music. So back in the days class, the instrument that is used in this type of poetry is lyre. I'm pretty sure that you're aware with lyre because we actually have this in our school, the drum and lyre band. So back in the days, lyre ang ginagamit po sa mga music as a music accompaniment sa ganitong klaseng poetry. That's why it's called lyric poetry. But for now, I have seen some lyric poetries in which they already accompanying modern classic instruments that they are using to accompany this type of poetry. So let's try to check this example. Class, this is a morning solace. Okay, this is type of an example of a lyric poetry. If you will observe the constructions of this, applying the rhyme scheme AABB or couplet, we will observe that um, if we will read this, pwede mo siyang kantahin or pwede mo siyang lagyan ng music. Let's read it. In the quiet dawn, I find my peace, a gentle breeze my soul release, whispers of hope in the golden light, guiding my heart through the silent night. If you will observe this type of poetry, or this example rather, is that pwede mo siyang kantahin or pwede ka maglagay ng music accompaniment. Right? Based on the construction or the structure of the poem itself. Okay? Number 2, dramatic poetry. When we talk about dramatic poetry class, it means that it is what? Is structured as a conversation or monologue. Tulad nga ng sinabi natin kanina doon sa idea ng dramatic, para siyang ipinaperformed ng isang actors or actresses. Parang merong isang actor na pinoportray yung dialogue ng isang character sa isang story. So that's why these poems are what? Written as a speech or dialogue for actors. So basically, it is something to be performed through monologue. Class, when we talk about the monologue, there is a one speaker who is actually delivering some speech or lines. Okay? And also, the speaker is usually addressing a silent listener. So yung silent listener na yun? Yung pong mga nakikinig. Kaya nga, when we talk about dramatic poetry class, we can also somehow use this, the theater actors are one of the best examples who usually performed this type of poetry. Because it is spoken, alright? Speech or dialogue for actors. So if we were to compare this example to the previous one, check this out. The betrayal. Look at the example. Speak now, dear friend, for the first time is near. Will you betray or stand by me here? The fire in his eyes, a question so dire, a trust hangs thin on burning wire. If you will read this example, it seems that there was a person who's talking to us, right? Pwede mo siyang i-perform, pwede mo siyang sabihin. So, para siyang speech na dinideliver ng isang actor at sinasabi sa isang silent listener or yung mismo nakikinig. Okay? So, yun yung pinagkaiba ni dramatic kay lyric. Number 3. Narrative poetry. Okay? From the word itself, narrative, narrate. So, it is a longer form of poetry that tells an entire story. So, when we talk about narrative poetry, it is a story that is somehow telling us. Alright? It typically has what we call the elements of a short story, a plot, or elements of a story rather, a plot, characters, conflict, setting, and more. So, didiscuss na natin yung elements ng plot. Meron tayong exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution, or denouement. And meron din siyang mga characters. So, basically, class, ang narrative poetry, kwento siya in a manner of poetry. Okay? Gumagamit siya ng tugmaan, gumagamit siya ng mga literary devices, gumagamit siya ng syllable or ng rhyme scheme, gumagamit siya ng mga lines and stanzas. Pero it's a story. Okay? A long story. Okay? So let's read this example, the knight's quest. Upon the hill where shadows meet, a knight rode forth his quest to greet, with a sword in hand and heart so bold to find treasure tales foretold. Kung makikita niyo yung class or you will observe the structure of this, we could observe that there is a story that's being foretold here. What? It is the quest of a knight. And the way it was delivered is patula or through poetry. Kwento siya, pero the manner na deliver siya is poetry because gumamit siya ng mga rhyme scheme, gumamit siya ng rhyme. Okay? Although makikita mo meron siyang character, and so on and so forth, and other literary devices that we could able to associate in this example. Okay? So, let's now differentiate these 3 types of poetry. Number 1, in terms of point of view. Okay? For lyric poetry class, ginagamitan siya ng personal or first person because the writer itself is expressing his feelings and emotions and thoughts to the reader itself. That's why it's called first person. For dramatic poetry, as I've said, since there is a speaker that is telling or speaking, its point of view speaks through the character's interaction. Speaker could be a character. So parang dinideliver ng isang actor na in character yung gustong sabihin, yung nararamdaman ng mismong character na yon. Number 3 naman, we talk about narrative poetry, usually rated in the third person as an observer and our characters speak for themselves. So, madalas dahil kwento siya, no, meron pong third person na observe. Usually may third person na parang nag-observe siya at siya yung nagkukwento or nag-narrate ng mismong kwento na yun. Or, kaya, mismong characters ang nagsasalita para sa mga sarili nila. That is, characters speaks for themselves. Okay? Moving forward. In terms of length naman, lyric poetry are just short and simple. Dramatic poetry are long and elaborated. And narrative poetry, of course, it's long and elaborated as well. For delivery, no, lyric poetry usually sung and accompanied by music, while dramatic poetry is recited, spoken, and acted in public. That's why there are actors and actresses. And for narrative poetry, it could be recited, it could be spoken, it could be acted, chanted, or even sung at the same time. Okay? And for the purpose, number 1, the purpose of a lyric poem is what? For self-expression of the author. Isn't it? The purpose is to express the feelings and emotions of the author and its thoughts. And what? The impact is to make the readers feel the emotion while they were reading the poem. Okay? Number 2, dramatic poetry. It tells a story and connects through the help of emotions and feelings of the characters. Ang dramatic poetry is magkwento din siya ng story at kumonekta dun sa mga emosyon na meron yung mga characters na yun delivered by an actor or an actress or by a speaker. Okay? And of course, for narrative poetry, its purpose is what? Is this tells a series of events in a story-like manner. Is ikwento ang mga pangyayari sa paraan ng story. Okay? Now, let's use this one. Let's move on to our author's purpose. Okay? Yeah. Meron tayong three common author's purpose. Number one is to inform, to persuade, and to entertain. So, let's try to check whether you could able to figure out whether the purpose is to inform, to persuade, or to entertain. Let's check these pictures. Ayan, Bini, salamin-salamin. Sa palagay nyo kaya anong purpose niyan? Mag-inform, mag-persuade, or mag-entertain? It's to entertain. Very good. Next. State of the Nation by Jessica Soho. To inform, to persuade. What do you think? It's to inform. And last but not the least, Pinoy Changemakers. It's to persuade. Very good. So let's identify these three. From the word itself as to inform. Inform. Ibig sabihin, to give someone information about something. Okay? Magbigay ng impormasyon. Yun ang purpose. Number two, to persuade. Persuade is to convince, perhaps. Convince would be the right word. Encourage or manghikayat. Alright? To convince someone to think the same way you do. So when you are persuading, you are hinihikayat mo silang what? Mag-isip ng kamukha nun sa'yo. Okay, maging kaani, maging kasapi. Kaya nga madalas nakikita natin ang persuasion saan? Sa mga political rallies, sa mga yung mga anong tawag doon sa mga malls, yung mga merchandiser, no? Is pinapersuade na tayo bumili ng product nila, at tawag doon persuasion. So sa poetry, meron din ganun class. Is kapag binasa natin, napapersuade tayo na, totoo yung sinasabi nito. Alright? And of course, number three is to entertain. What? Is to entertain or to amuse someone. Ang ganda naman ito, ang galing naman nito, and so on and so forth. So let's guess the purpose of the three poems. Number one, Stars by Ramon C. Sunico. Stars shiver because space is cold. Here they spin, the silence between them vast and innumerable. What do you think is the purpose of this? It's what? Very good, it's to entertain. Number two, hold high the broad serene, O youth, where now you stand at the bright sheen of your grace be seen, hope of my fatherland. To the Philippine Youth by Dr. Rizal, what do you think? It's what? To persuade. Very good. Number three, days will pass and things will grow old, flowers will bloom and soon will decay. But when friendship starts, all of the year it will remain fresh. Friendship by Vinir Santos. It's what? 2.4. Okay? So that's it for our lesson 5. I hope you learned something today. And please access this video so that you could able to revisit these videos, no? And also please do subscribe this channel so that you will always be notified whenever I post lesson videos about our discussions for the entire first quarter from the coming weeks. Alright, so thank you and good day class. Have a great day.